Hello, and welcome to Book Reviews Kill, a podcast about fantasy, sci-fi, and horror novels. I'm Evan.
And I'm Chad.
And you are joining us today for our recap and discussion of Caliban's War, Book 2 in the Expanse by James S.A. Corey. I think it's safe to say this is a good series of books, Chad.
We're in very good hands.
This is good. I am enjoying myself so much.
So good, it would near on impossible in my mind for the rest of the story to be anything but just awesome.
It's got to be good. Yeah. I'm sure there will be kind of like, hills and valleys, so to speak. I've heard there's a little bit of a dip in the middle of this, but I don't know. We'll see for ourselves, obviously. But, Leviathan Wakes was great. But this book, Caliban's War, does a much better job digging into these characters. The new ones introduced feel very well fleshed out and felt like great and necessary additions to the story. There was a lot more variation in the dialogue, in the conversations people were having. It just felt like so much more settled, and like I had such a better sense of place and of characters and events, and it was so great.
I totally agree. I have a little bit of beef with long series, especially that are 8-9 books in a row, where each book has the same feel to it. And much like The Dark Tower, these books, each book, at least we're only 2 deep, so far, each book has its own unique little home that it lives in. And it's still part of the greater story, and it's not so estranged from the style of the first that it's off-putting, but it's very nice and fills the story out and keeps me engaged. And it's just kind of cool that I don't get a bunch of steaks in a row. It's like, no, they gave me some hors d'oeuvres, and I'm getting a salad, then I get a meal, and then, it's a nice build-up.
Yeah, this is definitely giving me like space Game of Thrones vibes.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a lot of different things happening here, but there's a few key things that are giving me those
like,
vibes.
This character is like that character.
I mean, okay, so it's mostly just like, we've got this threat. They've got blue eyes, so there's that, which I thought was like, okay, guys, you're both friends with George R.R. Martin. Like, come on.
Right.
Anyway,
and we have Brienne of Tarth. I mean, Bobby.
Yeah, Bobby. But it's funny because these monsters have blue eyes, and one of the big things about this book, at least, is that there's this threat going on, and it is a very real threat, an existential threat to the entire solar system. But there's all this squabbling going on, and that's a really big part of A Song of Ice and Fire. So there's that whole thing.
It's almost like we would be okay if we could just figure out how to unify and just face the one foe that's actually going to kill us all.
Yeah, and I mean, we've got the point of view chapters, obviously, that are titled with the name, so that gave me Game of Thrones vibes as well. But to just sit here and compare this to A Song of Ice and Fire is almost not really fair, because it's definitely its own thing. It is an outstanding couple of books so far. I'm so excited to talk with you about all of this. Let's just get straight into the recap. Are you cool with that?
I'm cool with that.
All right, let's go. Caliban's War begins on the Jovian moon Ganymede, where a toddler named Mei Meng is kidnapped from her preschool by her doctor. Several hours later, Earth and Martian space marines are attacked by a mysteriously strong bipedal monster, with Bobby Draper, a Martian marine, the only survivor. The Earth and Martian ships in orbit over Ganymede begin a bloody skirmish, which throws Ganymede, the breadbasket of the outer solar system, into chaos. In the aftermath, May's father, Prax Meng, desperately searches for his daughter in the midst of the societal breakdown on the colonized moon. Several months later, the crew of the Rocinante are tasked with delivering emergency aid to Ganymede. Prax spots James Holden during a food riot and asks the crew to help find his daughter. They agree and are able to trace her kidnappers to unused tunnels on the moon. Holden, Prax, and ship mechanic Amos Burton discover a secret lab. In the midst of a shootout with lab security, they accidentally release another monster who kills some of the lab personnel. In the wake of the battle, the crew find remnants of the protomolecule and the corpse of May's friend, who was being treated by May's doctor for immunodeficiency. The crew rush to escape the station as the colony continues to fall apart and make it back aboard the Rocinante. Bobby is brought to the peace talks between Earth and Mars occurring on Earth, giving testimony regarding the monster attack on Ganymede. She violates diplomatic protocol and is dismissed by the Martian delegation, but is then hired by Christian Avasarala, who is leading the UN negotiations. Bobby discovers that Avasarala's assistant is betraying her, leading Avasarala to conclude that her UN superiors are trying to get rid of her. She then deduces that a group within the UN is responsible for the monster attack on Ganymede. Avasarala allows Bobby to be brought along as her bodyguard on a slow-moving yacht headed to Ganymede on an ostensible relief mission. On their way to Tycho Station, the Rocinante crew discovers a monster stowed away in their cargo hold. They are able to lure the creature out of the ship using radioactive bait before vaporizing it with the Rocinante's exhaust. The Corvette is damaged during the encounter, but the crew learn more about the strange monsters from Ganymede. At Tycho Station, Holden confronts Fred Johnson, who he believes controls the only other sample of the protomolecule. Johnson denies involvement with the Ganymede incident and fires Holden's crew. Newly independent and without any active contracts, they help Prax release a video asking for help searching for May, raising enough money to continue the search. The video also discloses the protomolecule's presence on Ganymede. Upon receiving information about May's doctor, Prax realizes that the monsters are being created on a base on Io. With the Rocinante repaired, they set out to recover May. On board the yacht, Avasarala sees Prax's video appeal and learns that a UN detachment is heading to intercept the Rocinante. The yacht's crew prevent her from warning Holden, claiming that their communication systems are broken. When they refuse her demands to get the yacht repaired, Avasarala commands Bobby to take control of the vessel. Avasarala sends a warning to Holden, and she and Draper board a racing pinnace to rendezvous with the Rocinante. After meeting Holden's crew, Avasarala and Bobby share notes on the monster Bobby saw on Ganymede. Realizing that they are several days away from being destroyed by the UN detachment, Avasarala convinces the crew to let her send this information to her contacts within the UN to prevent an all-out war. Bobby and Avasarala then convince the Martian fleet to help protect the Rocinante. This culminates in a space battle between the UN detachment, the Martian forces, and a second UN fleet loyal to Avasarala. With the UN Security General recalling the Admiral hostile to the Rocinante, the battle ends in victory for the Martians and Avasarala's UN faction. The crew lands on Io, where Amos and Prax rescue May along with other immunodeficient children. Bobby kills a protomolecule monster using her new knowledge about its capabilities. The crew heads back to Luna, where the people responsible for the protomolecule project are brought to justice. Avasarala is promoted, Prax is hired to oversee efforts to restore Ganymede, Bobby returns to Mars, and the Rocinante takes a contract escorting a supply ship. Throughout the story, the solar system had been watching changes on Venus, which culminate with the launch of something gigantic and unknown pushing away from the planet, destroying many ships in its wake. The book ends with Holden watching the video feed of Venus on repeat when Detective Miller appears at his back, saying, "Holden, we need to talk."
And immediately following that, Holden was like, wait 1 second, let me turn on my broad beam to the whole galaxy.
I was just about to ruin things even more. Oh man, I was really not expecting Miller at the end of this book. I almost texted you, but I wanted to wait until this moment. This is our first time talking about it. Wow, I love how there was like that weird little blue firefly on him too. He like moved it away from his cheek or whatever. Like his Miller, I don't
his
I have
radioactive familiar.
I have no idea what's going on with that. What an awesome last line of this book. It was so cool.
It was surprisingly awesome, and then I was immediately like kind of annoyed because I really like Miller as a character who we remember.
Right. I totally agree. I was like, this freaking guy again.
He's back.
That's fine. I didn't not like Miller, but yeah, I definitely I don't want any. I looked ahead in the next book in Abaddon's Gate. I don't think Miller has any point of view chapters. I think Holden is the only character that has consistent point. I think he's a POV character in every one of the books.
Okay.
I think that they changed.
I'm okay with like proto poltergeist Miller who shows up from time to time. I just don't want like, he served his purpose. It was great, but
But did he though? I don't know. I don't know.
he saved
Maybe
Earth
he's in
kind of.
charge of all the what do you think is coming off of Venus? That was a really strange description. It was like these strands of like light and like a lightning storm, and they like
It was
formed
awesome.
together and pushed all those ships out of the way, and like what the hell
Did you
was
ever play
that?
StarCraft?
No, I've never played it.
The proto-molecule is very Zerg-like to me. It was like a very organic. In order to spread and build buildings, they have to spread this like ooey gooey substance over the ground to broaden their sphere of building. And the proto-molecule kind of strikes me as very hive mind Zerg-like, and so it's very like
Yeah.
organic and wet.
I know we're 2 books into this 9 book series, and I'm sure it's going to get explained way more than it already has been. But that was kind of one thing about this book that I was kind of like, come on, like I just like wanted some more kind of concrete. And I think that that's almost the point of the book, is even the crew is just like, what the hell is going on? Like that, there's that one part where it's either Ava Sarala or Ava Sarala. I'm just
I've
going
been
to
saying
say
Ava Sarala in my
uh,
brain.
yeah, me too. So there's that one part where Ava Sarala is looking at this video feed of a different ship in front of Venus, and it's kind of earlier in the book. And this ship gets like dismantled, like expanded out, and uh, and it was so funny because she's looking at this and she's thinking the same thing the reader is, which is I don't have any explanation for what
Like
this could
what in the actual
possibly
hell?
be. Yeah, man, that
Yeah,
was really weird.
I will double down on your statement. It's literally in my notes of like the one thing that I was a little disappointed on was the proto molecule story arc goes from one unknown to a new unknown, making the previous question totally irrelevant because it's moved on and so should we. But it was like, I feel like
Yeah.
we should have got an answer and then it evolved, but it just went from like mystery thing doing mystery action to mystery, though its current state of travel is more interesting than just hanging.
I think we just aren't supposed to know. I think the last 2 books, in regard to like the proto molecule specifically and the weird things that it's been doing, hopefully will be answered in a way that where it makes these last 2 books make a lot more sense. Which I would really love. That's the coolest part about reading big long series like this, is you can kind of look back and be like, oh my God,
And
like
it's
that.
so impactful when you do learn because you've been waiting so long. Yeah, I think that's, and it's the authors almost, I think, probably deliberately have so much going on. Sometimes you kind of forget about it, and then you'll like it'll be mentioned like this tentacle arms, like, oh right, the
Yeah.
alien Zerg creature, like that's like Holden Julie maybe,
Yeah. Oh, it's Miller Julie,
or excuse me,
or
Miller
whatever.
Julie. Yeah,
Yeah.
the proto molecule is now headed away from civilization, right?
I think it's headed away from Mars and Earth. Yeah.
Okay,
But civilization's kind of everywhere too.
right.
So but I don't know
To the
why
outer
it wouldn't
reaches of
head
the
toward, like, is it crafting itself? It like, does it not need Venus anymore? Because there was a description that was, I felt like, really intentional, right? When it said in that last, it was like the last couple paragraphs, and it said that Venus looked like used up or something like that.
yeah, like
After
spent.
that spent, yeah, like after that, whatever that mass had kind of like left Venus, like Venus is like all sad now. So what I'm
Venus is
wondering
all
is
sad now.
like, is it like leeching like resources off of planets, or like using different planets as like a base of operations to evolve or something like that? That's kind of like
Yeah,
what I thought it might be.
I agree. I think it needed material and it was just
Maybe,
harvesting what it
yeah.
could and had enough organic material apparently from the Eros situation. And now it's achieved the optimal size for whatever goal it has. And I feel like it's moving into position, whatever that means. Because
Yeah,
it did seem,
totally.
and I guess this was probably just Julie driven, but it was very much earthbound at the end of last book
It was,
when it
and
got
that's why I thought it
movement.
was weird that it didn't go straight to Earth. But
And
I
is
guess we'll
Julie
find
in
out. Yeah,
control of it?
I don't know. We'll find out. It's fine.
Yeah. Probably
Uh,
very quickly, actually, because Holden obviously has some things to say, I'm sure.
Holden always has things to say.
Or, excuse me, I keep getting a
Oh,
mistake
you're
with
saying
Miller.
Miller, but
Miller
I
has
mean, I
made
was
some
about to start
reveals.
talking about Holden because like this guy, this Boy Scout man, like I kind of liked him more in this book than I did in the previous one, for sure, because he seemed a lot more conflicted. He seemed a lot more ready to kind of say, "Oh wow, like I've been being kind of an idiot," and it's just something about him. he feels so like predictable, you know, like when he's on
He's
that
so not
ship.
dynamic.
He's on the ship with Larson. Was that his name? It was when he went to Nguyen's ship
Yeah,
to go try and get like those the tracking for those things that had been sent from Io, that Nguyen like wouldn't give
I think
up.
that was Larson.
Yeah, and so like he's in there with him, and he's like, "One of us has got to push this button," you know. And he's like, "Don't worry, it's totally gonna be me, of course." And it's like, "Yeah, Holden, obviously." But I just thought it was funny because Larson was like, "I'll do it," and Holden was like, "Cool, see ya."
Right. I'll do it. Major eye roll.
But I mean, his suit was cut, but which I thought was like really convenient that like Larson's suit was cut. You know what I
There's
mean?
a
Because
lot of
it,
convenient things that happen in these books. But before we move on from
sure,
Holden,
yeah,
I feel like he was kind of the one character, and I understand why they did it. So I'll explain that in a minute. But he was, I feel like he was kind of dealt a small hand as far as growth and development is concerned. And I feel like the reason behind it is we're obviously going to be with him through probably all of the books. And so we have more time. Whereas
yeah.
a character like Prax, like, maybe we just spent more time building him emotional connection, we care, and then making his death or sacrifice more impactful.
I don't know.
Should that happen?
I didn't really like Pax very much. Like
No,
he
me
was
neither,
like,
which is why I think he's going to
I,
die.
I don't know. Well, I mean, I don't think he's gonna die. He's gonna. Well, I don't know. We might, yeah, see him on Ganymede die or something. But I don't know. Pax, I felt for the situation, of course, and I thought that he was a well written character in the sense that like it got a sort of like reaction and emotion out of me.
Hmm.
Because of the way that he was feeling, there were a lot of really cool parts with Pax where he was just kind of like sitting and thinking to himself. The authors did a really good job at kind of conveying what it would feel like to reach that kind of like hopeless pit where you're just like, man, she's dead. Like she's so dead.
He added a previously unheard voice to the story for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But I just, I don't know. I
You
just
spent the
felt
first
like,
100 pages being like, why am I following this guy around?
yeah, it
I did.
wasn't. It was just like he was just kind of a boring character. I don't know. What I just
Yeah.
didn't think
Like
he
he's on a
really needed
scooter.
the. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's but Eva Sarala though.
Oh,
Oh,
one of my faves. Probably my fave.
yeah, I think every time an Eva Sarala chapter came up, I was just like, I just settled in. I was like, here we go. These are so cool.
Which was
Oh
great.
man.
And I don't know if this was intentional, but those were my least and favorite chapters because I liked her the most, but I didn't really like the size of the political story in this book. I think it was necessary as we need to know it and understand the motivations and the cogs of this world that we're in. But I hope it doesn't become like half of the story. I hope it's just like a thing we needed to invest some time in now to understand, and then we can be like space fights.
See, I kind of disagree. I really liked, and this is very off brand for me, I suppose, but I really liked the political parts of this book a lot.
Was it just because you really liked her?
Well, I really liked her, but I thought that using Bobby as kind of this fish out of water person for me as the reader to like latch onto through all of this was really
Brienne of
great.
Tarth.
So that's the last time you get to do that.
No, it's gonna happen every time.
Okay, so like having Bobby there was really awesome because I was a little bit confused about some things, and then Eva Sarala would kind of like explain why there were multiple parts, you know, where something would happen, and then I would think, "Wow, that's probably bad," and then Eva Sarala is really excited, and then Bobby is like, "Why are you so excited?" And then
Help me
having that
understand.
explained, yeah, having that explained to Bobby and then to me vicariously made the politics seem a lot more fun.
And one of the things that I especially liked about Bobby being kind of the vehicle for us gaining knowledge was it wasn't because she was just like ill-informed or dumb. It was she's like already a specialist in another thing. So it was like she still gets to be cool and not know stuff, which was gracefully done.
Yeah, and she's Martian too. So she's super out of her element and really uncomfortable with this whole situation. Like there's even a part kind of towards the end of the book where it's like, wow, this is kind of a you're gonna have to tell me how a Martian is on board a Martian ship with a bunch of belters and a UN ambassador. What is going on? And then Holden is just like, it's a pretty crazy story. Like it is a weird mishmash of all kinds of different people, but that's really good. That's what this should be. It's what the whole solar system should be acting like this in the face of this wild threat that is obviously a threat. It's really nice.
It is, and it speaks to the greater kind of point being made that many times it's not an entire body that is corrupted or rotten. It's just a few bad operators, you know? And so it's like we have people from each different power hierarchy finding a shared value and moral system and like goals, you know,
Yeah,
altruistic goals.
there's even a part where Eva Sarala says something to the effect of like the entire UN isn't one person. There's it's all divided up and it's all just this big mess. And some people can be trusted and some people can't. Kind of to that though, one thing that I thought was like kind of a little bit contrived, I guess, was this last battle, which was cool, which I really liked the climax of this book. I thought it was great, well paced, exciting. But like the Martian ships just agreeing to help like immediately, I thought was like it wasn't bad, and there were a lot of things that made it make sense, but I just thought it happened like really fast, and like everybody's so constantly suspicious of each other, and like everyone's like so constantly on the brink of war that like I feel like that Martian ship was kind of just like, okay, yeah, we'll just start firing on this UN delegation. But I guess it kind of like, the reasons that it happened like kind of made sense. Eva Sarala was essentially just like, if you don't stop this right now, the whole universe is going to die, basically, is like what. And that Secretary General came out and kind of like condemned the kind of rogue faction of the UN, but I noticed that in his speech he didn't really say specifically who it was also. And then like Aaron Wright turns and like just a lot of things happened really really quickly, and I was kind of I was like a little difficult for me to keep up. Like, okay, so that guy switched sides and like the Martians are now attacking them, and like the Secretary General just like believes Evo Sarala. It's just like, okay, whatever. And then I just like kept reading.
There was definitely some subtle arcs that I missed for sure.
One of the best parts of this whole book in my opinion was Amos. I absolutely love him, and giving him some more backstory, fleshing his character out, explaining why he acts the way he does, why he's quick to violence in certain situations like that. That was brilliant. I really liked it. And one of my favorite Amos lines is when Pax is kind of telling them like why the lab is on Io, and his explanation for me as the reader, I was like, I am so lost right now. Like I don't know, I don't understand why he's coming to this conclusion. And then at the very end of Pax giving his whole spiel, Amos just says, okay, so the bad guys are on Io? And Pax is like, well, yeah. And then Amos says, well, damn, you could have just said that. And I was just like, yes, Amos, my guy, that's perfect. And I also really liked Alex. Alex, that's what I'm saying kind of at the top of this episode is, in Leviathan Wakes, we had Naomi and Amos and Alex kind of felt like the same person a little bit. Naomi was
Totally.
like the love interest, and it was like, all right, that's cool, but I'd really like to know more. And then in this book, it fleshes all three of Holden's other crew members out so well, to the point that I like all three of them separately and together way more than I like Holden
Oh,
personally.
I mean, I feel like we could probably be agreed in that we both always liked them a little bit more, but now it's like not even close, which is goes back to my statement. I feel like I was a little disappointed in his growth. Like, okay, so when he sees the proto beast that stows away on his ship,
Yeah.
which was a fun scene,
Yeah.
a little like again, like kind of like the opposite of whatever that's convenient would be. Like, he picked their ship. Cool.
I mean, wasn't it one of the only ones that was on the ground?
I mean, the whole place was trying to evacuate.
Yeah.
So I feel like
Maybe.
whatever though. So he goes back and he's just like enraged. Doesn't curb his enthusiastic judgment that he goes and slings at Fred by any of his previous in the last books mistakes, which are all of which caused by incomplete information that he then acts upon. And he does that here and like ruins his only connection with the one political party he has any power with.
Not to mention Naomi basically just saying, just don't do this. Like, you don't have all the information. And then Holden's just like, I can't help myself. I gotta go talk to him. But it's just, it got him fired. And obviously it worked out. But it's still just like, dude, Holden, like you have not talked to a single other person in this entire organization. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like Fred is literally the only person an OPA that has any information on anything. It's like you're not even gonna like hang out while your ship gets fixed and maybe talk to a couple other people. Like I thought
Right.
Fred's reaction to Holden basically accusing him, in as many words, accusing him. I thought Fred's reaction was completely warranted. He pulled rank on Holden and said, "Look, I am like the leader of this entire faction in the solar system. You work for me, okay? I've been paying for everything for you this entire time. Holden is going to have reasons to not trust people, just like everybody else has reasons to not trust people. But it's not enough. Like I feel like Holden should have respected Fred enough and not held Fred's past against him either, which he does, which is really dumb. I don't know. Like Holden is such a I would not hang out with that guy. Like he's really frustrating.
Certainly wouldn't elect him captain and follow him into battle. But yeah, I mean, at the very least, maybe go in and question Fred before slinging judgment upon him. It just seemed like cool. He's learned nothing. Is it going to take you starting 3 wars for the exact same mistake before you learn? And then what does he do right after that? He takes his Praxis information about May and blasts it out to the whole, which like probably is a good thing, but it just seemed like, man.
But it gets a bunch of UN, like rogue UN factions, like on their tail. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, and like his wife is like on a
couldn't
hate
help
campaign.
putting that into the message. But as far as Holden being the captain, I'm kind of on the fence about it. I feel like in some moments he really shines and he is a really good captain, and then it kind of gave me like a who better to be king than Brand the Broken like kind of moment when they were talking about all their roles on the ship, and then Amos is like, "You talk better than any of us," and it's like I feel like there's way more responsibilities a captain has than just talking to angry people, which obviously is a very good quality in a leader, but this guy really loves acting without thinking about anything, which is funny that Naomi had kind of said, like, you're turning into Miller, like, shoot first, ask questions later. And it's like, well, yeah, with regard to violence, sure, but he's always been impulsive this entire time. Like, it's like
Yeah,
his
like how
whole
about
thing.
think first?
Yeah. But I thought that
Yeah, and
Naomi kind of getting on him about that was really cool. I liked it.
yeah, I thought it was an appropriate response by her. I would love to have a renewed faith in Holden by him coming to some of these conclusions on his own. Because yeah, I really need him to show some growth in the next book or so, because like him being the leader and me just being annoyed by him constantly and so self-righteous, like no one else can be as altruistic as me. He's such a Boy Scout. It's like if it goes on too much longer without him evolving, I'm gonna start judging his crew for still following him and trusting him. So I hope he gets he levels up.
Yeah, we might see it.
Yeah, I hope so. It's a pretty terrible person who holds food as a quid pro quo for you being able to find your daughter. The one guy, I need some chicken, or else I'm not helping you. It's just like, man.
I mean, the whole station's falling apart and everybody's starving. I thought it kind of made sense. Like,
I
it's
guess.
it was weird that it was like a specific kind of food. Maybe I think that was why it was messed up. He's like,
Like
I
that's
want
specific.
chicken. Yeah, not just food. This food that I want, or I'm not going to help you find your missing daughter. Yeah, I can kind of see that actually. Now that I'm thinking about it more, because when I
Well,
saw Amos like basically crush the kid's face in, I was like, geez, like oh my god, like this is crazy. But then it
while
kind
we're
of
on, oh,
goes
go
to
ahead.
explain Amos's whole situation, which I thought was very well done. Did you catch that?
About his growth right there, or
About Amos's like backstory. It was kind of like Amos didn't really like overtly say like what had happened to him, but he kind of described something that had happened to other kids where he had grown up, and it was just like a
refresh my
very
memory.
it was
It's
like
not popping in.
prostitutes would like be intentionally impregnated so that for people with like a pregnancy kink kind of because of how rare children were or pregnancy was, and then after the kid was born he was basically just ditched or sold into something even worse or something, and like that was Amos kind of you get the impression that something like that or that specifically had happened to Amos, and that's why he's so hell-bent on helping somebody find their kid, and the way that either Daniel Abraham or Ty Frank wrote it was really cool because it wasn't it wouldn't have really made a whole lot of sense for Amos to just start talking about it, but mentioning it and kind of like talking about it in a more like removed, distant kind of way, and like
Right, like
letting
third
me,
person.
yeah, like letting me as the reader kind of like catch up to that and make that connection was really great. I thought, and it like fit in with Amos's character. It was awesome. It was really good.
Totally. And it fleshed out a lot of his motivations as well, as why he's such a loyal crewmate, right? Because he was
Yeah.
born not wanted. And so now once he found a place, it's like that is his home. He
Yeah,
will die for them.
totally. Yeah, Amos is definitely. Uh, I picture Alex as Matthew McConaughey. I don't know. It's just it's in my head because he's got like that southern accent kind of thing, and he's
Even
like
though he's
really,
Indian.
he's super calm and cool and collected, you know, and composed and just yeah. I really thought that
He's
was awesome too. That
always
he is
relaxed.
Indian, but he's got that southern accent because of just the way that people migrated to different areas on Mars and stuff, and the accents kind of got traded around and stuff. I love that. I thought that was such a nice touch, and that's what
And
would
it
happen.
totally, it's those little quirks, especially as they get refined to just one person having this little like weird thing about them that really like ground the story and bring it to life. Like a good example of this is Ava Sarala. Not only does she have a foul mouth, which I love, is also she has pistachio nuts all the time and is constantly frustrating everyone by like leaving little shrapnel pieces of the
Like
nut
her little
casings
way of
around.
pissing everybody off.
Yeah. It's just real.
I thought that Eva Saralla's kind of like vulgarity was kind of annoying at first. Not at first. It was more like a like this would be annoying if it was used a certain amount, but the fact that it's used so much like kind of brings it back up to funny again, you know? It's like this perfect amount. It's like every sentence. So it kind of like really works. And she's like 70, which is really cool. And another thing that I really love about Eva Sarala is her husband, Arjun, who it doesn't have any POV chapters. We hardly ever see him, but it humanizes her so much. You know, she's got to put the mask on, as Arjun would say. You know, like she's still a person at the end of the day. She still has so much love in her heart. Her heart's in the right place. You see her motivations for doing the right thing. She actually cares about, you know, who'd have thought the whole solar system not being destroyed. That's one of the things that's definitely, I kind of mentioned this in the episode previous, but it's just one of those things that's definitely really frustrating to read about. This is set hundreds of years from now when we've accomplished so much as the human race, you know, like we've done so many amazing things, and it's just like, yeah, but as soon as somebody gets their hands on something that could potentially kill everybody, suddenly everyone's fighting over it, and it's just like it makes sense, but it's also annoying and frustrating. It's like, why this is why we can't have nice things, you know?
Right.
Like this is it sucks.
It's
It's just a
it's
bummer.
pretty it is a bummer and it's kind of interesting and I think very deliberate. So I don't think that it's overused because I think it's intentional, but it seems like every battle or re-flaring up of a battle state where people are actively attacking each other is caused by false evidence and then someone attributing a motive to some act or info that is actually not true, whether that person who gave the false motive knew it or not, and then those in power using that potential manipulation of incomplete info to have their way and justify blowing stuff up.
You know what I think is a really key aspect of that, if you wanted to dig into that a little bit, is there's multiple points where Eva Sarala admits that she's really scared, right? She confides in Bobby and says, I'm afraid. She confides in Arjun, says, I'm afraid. And I think that, in my opinion, what's being hinted at here is that even these people that are in really high positions of power are operating mostly under fear and insecurity. You know, like no, Nguyen, and that's how I'm pronouncing his name. It's
It's
Nguyen.
Nguyen, I think.
It's Nguyen. But Nguyen and Aaron Wright, anybody like even her assistant Shane. I can't remember his name. We shouldn't remember his name. That guy was an asshole. but
Yeah.
um, but everybody is operating kind of for themselves or like out of a place of fear, and it just so happens that Eva Sarala is operating out of a place of altruism, but she's also really afraid, and a lot of her motives are to not be afraid anymore, which like totally makes sense. Nobody wants to be afraid, but it just so happens that some other people are afraid that this protomolecule will fall into the wrong hands. So then they feel like their fear is a justification for the rash acts that they need to commit,
Horrific thing.
or they use it, not necessarily the fear, but they use these justifications of like protecting people and advancing the human race even more against some alien threat or whatever. And I think both of these books so far in this series, we've done a really good job at kind of posing the question, not necessarily answering it yet, but posing that question, much like we see in Inheritance by Christopher Paolini, which we're also reading right now, of like, okay, so where is the line? Like, how many people need to die to ensure safety? How many
Right.
people do we need to make unsafe to make more people safe? That's a really difficult
When
question to
does the
answer.
ends justify the means? That's like and who gets to make the decision?
Exactly. And what's not helping is that this protomolecule, this threat to the solar system, is not thoroughly understood universally. Here's what I think. I
Okay.
think that this rogue faction, like Aaron Wright and Nguyen and stuff, like these people that, and Jules Mao also,
Yeah.
I feel like they have more information than Holden and company do, and the
They're
reader
holding
does.
out on us.
They're
Like
holding
Holden
out
never
on us.
does,
I think they
ironically.
know something. I think they know something that we haven't found out yet. And I'm not trying to like justify their actions or anything and say like, well, if they have more information, then they're so justified in doing what they're doing. That's not what I'm saying. But it's like, I think that the scope of their actions, and like how drastic everything that they're doing is, it doesn't quite add up to just pure greed to me,
Hmm.
So I hope we explore that more as we go forward. If it is just a
Right.
pure greed thing, that's fine, that works. It's not the most unbelievable thing in the world. People do absolutely horrific stuff. It's just because they want greed and money and power, obviously, but I think there might be something else going on here.
Yeah, or it could still be greed and self-gain and power, but there's an unknown variable to us that they're setting themselves up for an event that they're kind of aware of and positioning themselves to take advantage of it when it does happen that we have no idea even kind of what it is. And I think it's proto related for sure.
I want to talk about Bobby a little bit.
Okay.
I freaking love Bobby.
Yep.
Bobby was so cool, and it's an interesting thing because like her character, on a surface level, is like very kind of base. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like this hardened soldier.
She do what she says. She keeps her head down, keeps her mouth closed, follows
But
orders.
there's something that's a lot like deeper there too, though. In that she's kind of like seeking out violence, and almost like I think Eva Sarala hints at it, like her own death towards the end there, which is super dark and deep. I kind of wish that had been explored just a little bit more. I think that the narrative kind of like leaned a little bit more toward into her being like this kind of stalwart, like stoic soldier, more so than her real feelings about all this stuff, which I really enjoyed when she like kind of had that explosion, like that meeting between Earth and Mars,
Uh-huh.
where she was just like, "Are we going to talk about this ridiculous monster that killed a bunch of people right in front of me?" And then she gets rushed out, and they're just like, "We can't talk like that. We can't do it like that." She's just like, "Why not? Why can't we do this?" And so, like I said before, her being there for all of these political machinations that are going on, like if it had just been Eva Sarala in those chapters without Bobby there, I think I would have got a little bored of it. But she's kind of like the straight man, like she's kind of like the hardhead who's like actually right about stuff, instead of
Right.
Holden, who's the hardhead who's just hard-headed and stubborn. Like Bobby felt stubborn for like a lot of really good reasons, and Bobby felt like somebody that when she was being really stubborn or when she was acting a certain way, I totally understood like every facet of it. Yeah, she was awesome.
Mm-hmm. She was awesome. I think some of the guilt that she might have, which is leading to this perhaps want of self destruction, is caused by her own ability to know right from wrong, but her previous to now kind of being able to escape the chain of command where she's like, I follow orders because it's the right thing to do. Where now she's kind of working with Ava Sarala and is like, obviously there's not all of the people on the other side of the field are bad. So I kind of need to start guiding my own path through this situation because it's a lot more complicated than the black and white world that the chain of command has kind of harbored me in
And it's
until
almost
now.
easier to just like sit in that chain of command and sit in that regimented lifestyle, and then to leave that and be in a vague job where she's I mean, on paper she's a traitor, you know,
Right.
which is also a very interesting thing. It makes her a much more sympathetic character that she's still sticking with Ava Sarala because she knows this is the right place for her to be, or maybe not exact for her specifically to be, but it's the place where she could do the most good.
And her specifically, I think even, the chain of command also harbors a soldier from some of that guilt of having to do something. They, slaughter all these people. Well, they were just following orders, sort of thing. It kind of moves up the chain. And she's now an independent operator. And so she's like kind of it's cool watching her navigate that responsibility because there's a freedom there, but also a heightened sense of responsibility. So you briefly touched upon it at the beginning, but do you think there's a similarity kind of being drawn between book one, trigger happy detective Miller, and book two, I'll shoot you in the throat halfway through your sentence, Holden?
I don't know. I felt like that got kind of dropped a little bit when Holden shoots Noyan in the throat, and then he's like, "Ah, oh, sorry, I know you're gonna be mad at me about that." And Naomi's just like, "No, that guy had to die." And it's just like, "Oh, okay."
Because he
So
was a
like
sociopath.
this, but like this guy had to die, but it was like bad when Miller did it, to
Yeah.
Anthony Dresden. It's like kind of literally the exact same situation.
And that's
So
my frustration. He doesn't realize it.
well, I think he realizes it I just thought, yeah, that scene was weird because it was like he does realize it, but only to the extent that he knows it's gonna piss Naomi off. And then Naomi's even like, nah, it's cool, don't worry about it. It's like, wait a minute, we just spent like 2 books setting up this whole thing about how maybe you shouldn't shoot first and ask questions later. And now it's like, nah, it's cool to do it in like literally the same situation you got upset about in the previous book. So maybe it's like setting maybe it's a way of complicating Holden's character a little bit more because like maybe in the third book he's gonna have to wrestle with that a little bit. That'd be cool. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that was kind of strange, for
Me too.
sure.
Yeah, I feel like if the scene in the Bible where the village is about to stone the woman and Jesus is like, "Whoever is without sin, cast the first stone," we would hear like mumbled once again. I have to do all the hard work, quickly followed by a rock hurled from Holden, who like winks at Jesus, being like, "I knew who you were talking to, big guy." Like,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to like spend the whole episode crapping on Holden, but yeah, he's pretty easy target. But obviously we're only 2 books into a 9 book series, so I feel like you said earlier, like there's a lot more growth potentially for everybody. And you know, Holden, I feel like does a really good job under pressure, which is a very good mark of a good leader. There's a lot of cool moments when they're in kind of these pitched battles where Holden is really calm and really collected, but then also there are some other moments where he's barely clinging on, like when they're on Ganymede and Holden realizes for the first time that potentially the protomolecule is in a very close proximity to them, and he barely handles his way through that situation, which I kind of liked, honestly. Like I
yeah,
really
Eros
liked that.
trauma.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a really great way to show that. Like it was, he's got some PTSD. Like he's got some issues after watching what happened on Eros, just like anybody would, because that was a lot. And
Yeah.
he's like in his mind, he's like, oh my god, I'm about to see the same thing happen right now, and this is all happening all over again. And even Amos has to be like, hey, are you okay? Because we gotta we got stuff to do like right now, and you're our leader. Is he still their leader? Like, I don't know.
Okay.
Like,
I don't know. I felt like halfway through the book, he was like, "Hey guys, I just want everyone to remind me that everyone here thinks that I can do this job better than everyone else, right? Okay, vote. Yeah, okay,
I
we're
don't
good, we're good,
think that's what that conversation was.
we're good. I just got
It,
annoyed with him, so I started looking for ways to
I,
just get
I mean, I
more
thought that
annoyed.
that conversation was really important because after Holden and crew got fired from the OPA, I, as the reader, was kind of just like, well, what the hell are they supposed to do now? Like, we have 9 more books. Like, what the hell? They're just gonna like float around space, hanging out. But I really like that because Holden was basically saying, okay, so we're all together. What are we supposed to do now? And I was kind of feeling like that too. So it was a really nice conversation that they had kind of settled on some things. It didn't really feel like the crew was really dividing, other than Naomi leaving, which I knew Naomi was going to come back. And I don't. I feel like she didn't even really leave.
No.
She was like, "I'm gonna go do my own thing for a couple days. Like, if I hear that you killed Fred or something, then yeah, I'm actually gone." You know,
It felt like
but
the authors were like, we need to have him make him some like hard decisions because we character growth, when it really just kind of came off as character ungrowth and then regrowth to exactly where they were before. But whatever. I will say, for Holden's sake, one thing that he really does a good job at, and what all leaders should strive to do, is using the expertise of the people around them. He's like very quick to being like, you're the best at this. What should we do in this situation that pertains to your skills? And he's very he's not so prideful that he doesn't use the knowledge of those around him, and I respect that a lot. Okay, I think I just missed this a lot, but what was it about May specifically that made her the viable test subject? Was it her autoimmune disease?
okay. So I think I know
Okay, I'm
this.
glad you're not like
I
idiot.
mean, I kind of know. Um, I don't know the specifics, but it seemed like these kids with this immunodeficiency. So like the issue with the kind of like monsters, and fun fact here, Caliban is a character from the Tempest, Shakespeare's
Shakespeare, yeah.
Tempest, who is like half man, half creature. So I think that that's why the book is called Caliban's War. But anyway, so the issue with these Calibans, if you will, with these kind of like hybrid protomolecule people monster things, is that they can be, I guess, programmed to a certain extent, but then they're not able to be controlled, and that's an issue, obviously, because they want to. It seems like they were trying to weaponize them to some degree, and they can't be controlled. So I think that they were experimenting on these kids because their immune systems were similar in that regard. You know what I mean? I
Okay.
I don't know the exact. I couldn't tell
That's good
you.
enough for me.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you like when Prax was like describing it, and there were a couple other conversations that were trying to discuss it. I was just like, this is a lot. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, I don't need like
Like,
when the cellular flagellum goes, it's like, no, 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 just like she's a viable candidate medically. Cool.
yeah, that kind of leads me into like another. I guess I kind of like complained about this a little bit on the last episode, but I mean, there is so much jargon in these books. And it's good for setting and immersion and stuff like that. Obviously, like I do feel like I'm on a spaceship. It's awesome. I'm out in the space battle and stuff, but like sometimes, man, like there's like that part. It's like the parts before and after that monster. They were like directly dealing with the monster that was on their ship. It was like they're just like fixing stuff and talking to each other about fixing stuff and talking about the way they're gonna fix stuff, and it's just like, dude, this is kind of boring, honestly. Like,
Right. There's
this
a
is,
fine line. Like when I'm
yeah.
reading a sailing fantasy novel, I want them to use sailing terminology, but not to the point where they're like, there's a lee word coming off the prow side, so you better haul your skivvies or else we're going. You know, it's like, I don't know.
But like,
you
but
know?
to be fair, like, what other language should they be using? You know what I mean?
Sure.
It makes sense because it's like it's kind of on me as the reader. I'm like, I don't understand what these words are. It's like, well, then look them up, Evan. Like, you're reading science fiction, you're reading about spaceships. Like, do a little
It's to be
legwork, you know?
expected.
Yeah, I know, but it's
But
just
like I said, there is a
some.
fine line between understanding and, immersing you in their world. So, and I think, occasionally it tarried over to the wrong side of it, but not to a point that I was annoyed.
Oh no, I never like put the book down. I was like, I don't understand any of this. It was just, there were just parts where I felt like my eyes were glassing over a little bit, and I was just like, I don't even know what. There's like a whole paragraph of words that I don't understand. But maybe I should just pause, and I've got my phone right next to me. Just
Is
look
there an
up what it
index at the
means.
back? I
No,
haven't looked.
no, there's not. But I should just look it up. Like, I'm sure there's Expanse wikis. I'm sure there's all the resources I would ever need. So, folks, if you're listening right now, I won't complain about this on the next episode. I'll just do it the way I'm supposed to do it. This is too hard.
This is really difficult,
I
guys.
don't know what any of these words mean.
Oh, so hard. Like, I got a dictionary. Though, while we're talking about things that we have to look up, I'm going to go back to the title
Yeah, sure.
because I was a little annoyed as I had to do some extracurricular research to figure out why it was called Caliban's War. Because at no point is that word within the
I know, I
confines
was
of
like
these
waiting
almost
for it.
600 dense pages. And it was like, man, if you couldn't fit it in there, like maybe just like, give me one little paragraph about the history of like, did you know? And it's like, give me
Yeah,
a
they could
little
have
thing where
pulled
it's
up
like,
Shakespeare on one of their little iPads, like their
yeah,
terminals. That would have been kind of cool. If Naomi was reading The Tempest or something and said, "Oh, this is weird. Those things that's like Caliban or something." Because
right.
I mean, I
But it's
I,
like, I
re-
have to
I
go,
read a decent amount, but I didn't I didn't know it was like a character from The Tempest. I'm sorry.
neither did I. And I've like done the play.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
in high school, but still.
Apparently, none of the book's titles have anything to do with what's in the books. I looked it up. They're all like allusions to something else. So Abaddon's Gate is like something else that's
Biblical.
not. Yeah. Is that biblical?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, but Don
Uh,
is like Lucifer's right hand man,
oh, wow. That's.
and he guards the gate to hell.
Ooh, this is going to be pretty dark then.
He
Oh
has the
my God.
keys.
And then, like Cibola Burn and I mean, Nemesis games, that could probably apply, maybe. Um,
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Tiamat's Wrath. They're cool names for title. They're cool titles for the books, but yeah, I kind of fell into that. Like, when is this Cibola guy gonna come up, or when is this Caliban guy gonna come up?
I agree. And it just made me annoyed that if you can't contain your entire story within the story, like, come on, man. It's like, that's the point. That's where the story should be told. You have a place for it, put it in there.
I know,
Don't
and
make
that's
me
why I
Google
thought
it.
it would be really cool if somebody was reading the Tempest, because it's like it's not a big deal that it's a reference to the Tempest. That's totally fine, but just like include it in the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like
That's
put the
not a
story
problem.
in the story. I think it was also like the secret tests that the secret mission or whatever that Protogen was running was called Caliban's like mission or
Was
something
it?
like that. Yeah,
Oh, I missed that.
I believe so. Oh, it wasn't in the books at all.
Oh, okay, okay. I was
I
like,
learned this
no.
extracurricularly.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, and also I haven't watched the show, and it seems like maybe some stuff is like covered differently, or with more detail, or more succinctly and like coherently in the show sometimes, which is interesting. But I don't want to watch the show like while I'm reading the books because I guess they did change like a decent amount of stuff, so I don't want to
Mhm.
get my wires crossed there.
The season one goes immediately into the politics on Earth. You're introduced to Ava Sarala in the show in episode one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Wow. All right. Maybe I kind of want to watch it now. And I'm not going to. I'm going to
Booker is
watch it.
cooler though. Okay, so I don't want to just take us down a rabbit hole of just like that's a ridiculous thing to talk about, but like I don't know, we talked about some weird food stuff with the chicken earlier, so I'm gonna just kind of add to it. Pizza party, a pizza party.
A
The
piece. Wait, what are you talking
They
about?
come across all of
Oh,
like
that
the
was weird.
secret
Yeah.
agents. Like the whole place is being evacuated, but like in the room right next to where they find the dead body of like there's like a pizza party happening. Like, what, a party around pizza
That was kind of odd.
during an evacuation?
I think it was supposed to show that those were definitely not people that lived on Ganymede, because the people that lived on Ganymede wouldn't be eating pizza because they're all like starving and stuff. So I think
Right.
that was like the way of showing like this is a very different set of people, right? They're eating pizza, but that is I forgot about that because it was so off that I was just like, whatever. She had like she had like a whole piece of pizza in her mouth, and then he like shoots. Yeah, that was okay. Yeah.
It seems so like evil monologue, like it would be the only thing that could have made it worse is if they were like, well, yeah, we stole the money for this pizza from those kids that we experimented on. It's like, okay, we get it. They're bad. Did you think that it was kind of convenient that Prax sees Holden and he's like, oh, I saw 4 minutes of video about you being super altruistic. You're Dr. Information. You're probably Dr. Kidnapper too. Help me out. And then they're like, yeah, let's team up. It just seemed
I did think it was
convenient.
weird how quickly, like, they're there for relief efforts, and so technically they're doing their job, but it's like I feel like they kind of ditched like the whole reason they were there on like a grander scale, which is what their mission was. I guess if you think about it, like maybe their mission was just to drop stuff off, and then like what, just hang out there for, I don't know. But I did think it was kind of like, oh, they're just gonna help this guy like immediately with like this one problem, when this entire place is just like falling apart.
They're like,
But
people are escaping in just suits. Nobody needs a ship with extra room. We'll just help you.
yeah, that was a little odd. But then it made a lot
Yeah.
more sense once they kind of realized how tied in May was with everything,
Oh, it
and
was
they
the right
and they
move.
and they figured it out really quickly. So it kind of assuaged like all of that for me, where it was like I was willing to suspend a little disbelief because it was like obviously the right way for the story to go. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But yeah, definitely, I was like, there's no reason for them to help this guy, like at all.
But he nailed it in his radar for good people who try to do good things, and because Holden is that. I feel like, and I've complained about this in past podcasts, and you never seem to have a problem with this, so I think it's just a personal issue. But I really wish that authors would take the time to leave me a line of like, and while they were waiting between missions to go kill another space pirate, the crew trained with the close quarters expert who led the squad team for the OPA and learned squad maneuvers. Because they get into these gunfights and they're grossly outgunned every time, but they all survive. And it's like, give me a reason so I believe that.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of like a, this is the main crew in Star Wars, and the stormtroopers just happen to miss a lot, kind of thing.
Yeah,
I do hear what you're saying though, because
the
like,
Millennium Falcon will never be shot down.
and it's something that, so we're 2 books into this, and obviously this series is going to get a lot different, and we're going to end up eating a lot of our words as this goes on. And we appreciate everybody that's listening right now that's read the entire series and is just kind of humoring us right now. Um, but reading this book and the one previous, and like the myriad action sequences that I really love, that I think are coordinated really well, uh, there is like a small part of me that's just like, all right, is this going to turn into like a Dritz Stewart, and kind of like they get into like 5 or 6 different skirmishes a book, and they just all come out clean every time, and round we
Rocinante
go.
does it too. Just
Yeah,
gets
yeah.
through like a whole fleet blockades, like
I know that was kind
torpedo
of funny when like Alex landed, and Holden was just like, "How did you do that?" And Alex is just like, "Yeah,
I'm just that good.
yeah." It's just like, okay, man.
All right,
Like, I
McConaughey.
know that's why I have like that. All right, all right. Like we're just gonna bring down the Rocinante at a different part than nobody's looking at.
And I'm gonna look good while doing it.
Yeah, but that's fine. There's a certain kind of like style to these books that I really enjoy. There's like this kind of like laid back energy to a lot of things in these books that is awesome. I think it's great for science fiction. Sci-fi can feel a little bit stuffy and overbearing now and then. Like comparing this to like Remembrance of Earth's Past, which is like really intense and really heady and really does not really hold your hand through like any of it. You know what I mean? And then like reading something like this, it feels just a little bit more like accessible. It feels a little bit more like kind of an action movie kind of thing, where it's like, no, not 100% of like literally everything needs to fall neatly into place and make 1,000% sense all the time. And I think that Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank do a really good job at like presenting you with these really intricate plot lines, giving you a lot of good mystery, and also supplying you with action scenes that feel really exciting despite any kind of like conveniences or contrivances or anything like that. Because like, yeah, those exist, they're there, but they're in every book, they're in every
Yeah,
series, they're all over the place. We've talked
they're
about it
not
multiple times on here.
they're not afraid to beat the heck out of their snow globe with which I love. And I always have the ultimate justification for those seemingly acts of repeated miracles, which is stories don't get written about the people who aren't lucky. Of
Yeah,
course.
totally.
In
Yeah,
fact, of all the stories out there, it's pretty likely that one person would be that lucky that many times in a row. Okay, as we begin to wrap up here, I have a question, and then we can move on to maybe some predictions.
sure.
Do you think that this book is a character driven plot or a narrative driven plot?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like a lot of these 2 books, at least, are really focused on how people feel about things. Like we're dipping into Eva Sarala and her son dying in a skiing accident, the way she feels about her husband, the mask that she has to put on, the way she feels about the mask that she has to put on, the fear that she's feeling that she feels like she needs to constantly cover up. Like those things are what's driving the actions that affect so many other things that are going on. So, yeah, I feel like it's
I mean,
always just like so intermingled, you know?
yeah, you're right. It's really hard because you could say like how at the end of the day, everyone is limited to a set of choices. So it's like, when are you truly free to lead the story? But I don't know. I just, after a lot of thinking about it, and with my definition of that, the proto molecule, a thing, not them, is leading this story, I landed on narrative. But, I feel like it's important to say that that just by no means doesn't mean that the book can't or doesn't have good characters or growth. It's like that's totally fine. It's just who's leading it. She can have a totally emotional reaction within the set of story that is forced upon her.
Huh, I like your take on that. That's cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question for you, and it's we didn't really get to see too much of this Strickland guy, or Carlos, I guess is his real name, or there wasn't a whole lot of information there. And then when they finally do confront him, he seems. What did you think about that? Did he seem like really genuine in
I
like
don't
wanting to help
know.
out? I don't know what that was all about. Like
Kind of
Amos just
felt
kills him. We're just killing people. Like
Yeah, I don't know. I got the sense he was like a man with his back. He was like Dresden without the sociopathic calm, and that he was like, I have no more outs, so I'm just gonna try to talk my way out of it. Blah, And it was like,
yeah, but like take him prisoner or something. Like we're just murdering
you need
everybody,
a
and that
good
and that kind of
shooting.
connects to what I was saying before of like maybe these people have really useful information. You keep fucking killing them. Like stop.
He
Like if
needed
this
to go.
like this situation is so bad. Like it's so nobody like the more information you have, the better off everyone's going to be. So stop killing the people that have information. Like you
The
think these
lack of
guys are
which
just
starts every war.
right, and it's like what you think that these big baddies just have literally the not the same, not even just the same amount, but the same kind, the same flavor of information that you do. So it's like perfectly reasonable to kill them because they're just no longer useful to you. It's just why? Why would you do that?
A waste of an
Whatever.
asset. Kill them later. You can kill them tomorrow.
But Amos, at least in Amos's case, he said earlier in the book he's going to do it. You know what I mean? Like that was kind of I thought that worked. I'm still annoyed about it because it's like this guy has so much cool information, but at the same time, like Amos was like so many chapters before, like I'm going to find whoever this is and I'm going to kill him,
I'm
and
gonna
then he
kill
just
him.
does it. And Amos, his backstory and everything, like really feeds into that. So yeah,
Yeah, that
I'll give that a pass.
that locked into perfect alignment of like, yep, he's a man of his word. He sets his eye on something and he does it.
All right, let's do a couple predictions here and then call it a day.
Okay. Man, it's like I feel almost unfulfilled because there's so much to this story.
Yeah,
It's
there's
like I
so
feel like
much
we haven't
more.
done a service. We could be here for 3 hours, but people probably don't want that. So
And
I'll allow
we
them
have
to.
7 more books, so
Yeah.
we're gonna don't worry everybody. We're gonna be talking about this so
The
much.
boomerang will come back
Yes,
around.
it will. Okay, so what do you think is the ultimate goal of the protomolecule if it has one? What do you think it's trying to do?
I think it's a first contact program. It's a well, I was going to say non-threatening, but it hasn't proved itself to be that. It's a interesting way of approaching another race or a potential race and being like, here's a way to give us a call, maybe.
A call?
Yeah, get in contact with us.
Interesting.
Like when you're
Yeah.
ready, it'll be there for you.
Oh, but then what? But why would it mutate everything? Like, why wouldn't it just be, you know?
I don't know.
Like, I think it's like malevolent. I think it's there to like
You
wipe everything out. At least that's how I
yeah,
feel it. Like,
maybe. Is it
it was
sentient
headed towards Earth,
or is
but I
it
guess that was
programmed?
Julie too.
Yeah, she just wanted to go
That
home.
was like a thing. Yeah, that was weird. but
Homeward bound.
but
Yeah,
like,
I don't.
why would it like it like turns humans into soup? Like that can't be good, right? I
No.
mean, that's not like if I was an alien civilization and I was like, let's make contact with these folks, I wouldn't be like, how do we turn them into soup? And
Stand in
it's
the middle of
also
like Arrow Station, like, huh, not what we had in mind.
well, and it's also like implied that it was sent on an asteroid to Earth to kind of like stop life from evolving on Earth, or at least, if not stop it, then change the way that it did it.
I call bullharky.
I also, so I don't quite not believe that, but at the same time, I also think that the only people we've heard that from are the people that were trying to use it for their own benefit. So I don't necessarily believe that. So
Right.
I don't really have much of a prediction about it. It just seems like something that was designed to, maybe it was like sent by an alien race to further populate. Maybe it is an alien race. You know what I mean? And then they saw that Earth was ready for life, and they were like, "Oh, but there's already some there. Let's just send ours over there." Or something. I
Right.
don't know. I don't
Or
know.
maybe it was going to turn into humans originally, and then they're like, that failed, and they dropped us off later. But I mean, you're telling me that the alien race that can make the protomolecule, put it on a moon, slingshot it towards the Earth, didn't know that it would then get caught by Saturn or whatever's
Right.
gravity?
Yeah,
Like
that's
they don't know
another really
orbital
good
mechanics
question.
math? Like
Yeah.
I feel like
It just
they would
happened.
have figured that one
They're
out.
like 2 billion years ago. They're just like, dang it.
Dang it. That planet was behind the other one when we did our calculations. We didn't see it.
Oh, that thing was huge. We should have seen that thing. Saturn is big. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We'll find out.
Alex and Bobby, or is it Amos and Bobby? I felt some vibes with one of them.
No, I don't see it. Like Bobby was never, because there was a moment where Bobby was like, I want to be around somebody because I'm just like sad and anxious and stuff. Like right before that battle in the climax, and she had considered going and visiting Alex, but then she knew that it would like give the wrong signal, and she wasn't. I don't think Bobby or Amos or Alex. I think it was a cool idea to just like have platonic relationships in here and just keep them that way. Bobby's like a pretty complicated character. She doesn't seem like it. That's why I like Bobby so much. Is that she doesn't really seem like a super complicated character, and heaping more like conflict onto Bobby. She's also like super smart, and she knows like if I get into her like a thing with one of these guys, like I'm not gonna
Yeah.
want to go home or something like that. You know, it just made sense to send Bobby home and be with her family on Mars after the ordeal that she went through.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think part of her kind of arc is the realization of her problems, is the realization of how complicated she actually is. She's not just a drone that follows orders. She thinks and knows right from wrong and has the freedom to choose and affect things, you know? Oh, best prologue of all the books. I predict this one was the best prologue of all the books.
We're only on the second one.
It was so good.
It was really good. Yeah,
This
I liked
awesome battle that then starts another battle.
it. Yeah, I thought it was good. Wait, no, wasn't the prologue just May being taken away?
Oh, I think you're right. I just
Yeah,
have
it was a
so
good
hyped up in
beginning.
my
Yeah, it was a good
brain.
beginning to the book. But yeah, I think that the prologue was pretty tame.
Darn, my
Actually,
prediction is died before it even got onto his feet.
well, everybody, I think that's going to do it for us today here on Book Reviews Kill. Thank you for listening to our recap and discussion of Book 2 in The Expanse. Caliban's War was great. I liked it more than Leviathan Wakes. And you can join us next time when we recap and discuss Book 3, Abaddon. Is it Abaddon?
I think it's Abaddon, yeah.
Abaddon's Gate.
I think I
Abaddon?
don't want to start another conversation again, but I like this one just a little less than the first one.
Oh, interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I was like
Yeah.
wrapping up.
I also think Prax is going to die in the next two books.
I flipped through a little bit the third book, and there's no Prax chapters,
Oh.
or Avasarala chapters, or Bobby chapters,
Oh, wow.
which is interesting. I hope that doesn't spoil anything for anybody, but
Might
if
tidy
you
up
made
the
it this
story,
far
yeah.
into the episode, then you have more patience with us than just me spoiling stuff. So I appreciate you being here. Yeah, we'll see what's going on in book 3 when we get to it, which will be next week, everybody. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. Hope all of you have an awesome rest of your day. And of course, happy reading.
Bye, everybody.